Happy Thursday! Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. It's great to see you. Not our usual day. Definitely not our usual day, but I thought let's give it a shot. Something different. Let's see what buddies are on. I know I caught a lot of people by surprise today. Volume's up. Thursday at 5. Why not, right? Andrea, good to see you. I always say this, it must be so late there. I'm so tired. I was tired so early. I get like so wiped out so easily. You must be tired, but I'm so happy that you're there. I have a fun episode today. Let me tell you about it before we get started. I found a couple of things that I thought were interesting, and I'll back you into this sort of like a horse into a stall, right? Meet. This came yesterday, Early American Magazine, and I look through this often. This is one of the few magazines I subscribe to. I have like some historic sort of magazine subscriptions, and sometimes they're good. They're very hit or miss, to use a rug hooking term. This will be for December 2022. December 2022. How did I just get this from December 2022? That's very strange, isn't it? It actually does say that. It literally just came in the mail. I don't understand. They're a very good magazine. I don't know what happened. But it's a good thing it did because I had a minute to, man, that's weird. I feel like I'm in some kind of Brigadoon moment. They had a nice article that included a couple hook drugs. So I wanted to look at that quickly. And I also had ordered on eBay. I don't know if those of you who scour eBay like I do found this set of four really funny. I don't mean funny in well, I guess I'm being a bit patronizing. I need to stop. Four, almost like a correspondence course, um, books on rug making circa 1926. And we're going to look at these together today for the episode. The first, lesson one, origin and modern methods, right? These are called hooked rugs, a bit of history. Lesson two is stories and anecdotes. There's not a lot of anecdotes in there, actually. That one sounds amazing. It's not as good as it sounds. Number three, rudiments and mechanics. And number four, color appreciation. It really is, it's got a lot of charm. And the reason I like looking at these kinds of periodicals is because they're dated enough that, when you're looking at what the advice is in them, it almost makes you question the way that you're working now, right? Like almost 100 years later. It's interesting. It's all interesting. So let's take a look at that together. Andrea, great to see you. Mom, great to see you. Good evening in Granby, Connecticut. Linda B, great to see you. It's a treat to see. And our friends on Thursday evening. Happy to be hooking away. Oh, that sounds great. And Sharon, great to see you in Vancouver. It's almost like a spring day. It is like lightening up a bit, isn't it? Those cold temps are lightening up. Candace, great to see you. Good afternoon. Kirsten, good afternoon in Vermont. Great to see you. Dave, rainy day in Toronto. Good to be sitting in front of the screen, right? Good to see you. We'll have a few laughs and some really charming anecdotes today coming out of these books. I'm going to try not to be like looking at them like it's a because it's not funny. It's just they were working in 1926 with the information that they had, and they're put out by Fireside Industries. I've had a really hard time today researching this company because it's a name that has sort of been used for a lot of other companies since then, and currently it was a hard one to research. It was like when I was looking for Victor Hugo, Alice Butler's son, online. It brought me right to Notre Dame 99% of the time. This was kind of the same thing, but it's going to be a fun episode. There are some quirky things happening. Sue's great to see you in Kansas. Karen, great to see you in Colorado. It's snowy. Oh my gosh, it's snowy again. Linda Ann, great to see you. I owe you a message for Shoresies. So, so I wanted to do 3 episodes this week, and I think some of you might know I did the Monday episode, and then I was away. I did kind of a overnight retreat. I'm going to do this, I think, on a regular basis, at least until this current book is done, because it worked great for me. So I went to my friend's place, which is an Airbnb, the Creation Station in East Hampton, Massachusetts, and it's this beautiful big barn. With views of the woods, and I was just like, looking out the window first thing in the morning when I woke up and looking at woodpeckers and taking walks in the woods there. And it's that place where he's lit up like tens of thousands of lights in the woods. So you can do Alexa, turn the lights on, the Enchanted Forest lights up, and Yeah, I mean, the whole Alexa thing, for me, I've never used Alexa before. And I wrote to my buddies on Patreon. And again, huge thank you to the Patreon members. I want to take a moment since I reminded myself. I just sent the message, the monthly message to Patreon members. Thank you hugely for your support with the pattern of the month. And the pattern of the month, I'm coming back to the story. The pattern of the month this month. Do you remember how once in a while I used to do patterns that related to news items, like in the newspaper? Not horrific ones, but kind of funny ones. Rocky Rockefeller was a big seller, that little owl who they found had traveled in the big Rockefeller Center Tree Square. Um, he had been living in there, and then they had to, rescue him and get him out of there because he was in the center of Manhattan. I did a rug for him, and that was a popular pattern. But I found a news item this past week in Maine. It was set in Maine, and this seal had been picked up, arrested 3 times in one morning for like slithering, dragging itself up the main street, just like in the middle of this Maine town. And it was such a cute story, and the seal had such a cute face that I did for Patreon members. If you're a Patreon member, you've already gotten it. If you're not a Patreon member and you join within the month, this will be one of the patterns that you get. I did like sort of a primitive picture drawing of the seal on this kind of snaking road through all of these just sort of triangular evergreen trees with a couple little houses, very primitive style houses, so easy to hook. And I put it inside an oval. And then in the corners, I did a floral motif, thinking about Waldoboro and Maine, right? Those floral Waldoboro rugs. So I think it's a really cute pattern. I really, really like it. But I wrote in the message to the Patreon buddies that, I went on Tuesday to do this retreat thing myself just because I hadn't started working on the book. I've said that before. Like, this is someone who in college and beyond, I just wait until the last moment to do stuff, and it's not a healthy pattern. And people say, oh, I work well under pressure. Well, so do I, but it's just not a necessary thing to put yourself through. And I was starting to get super stressed. And in this case, a lot of people are helping me hooking rugs. Thank you to all of those people. So I want to make sure that the designs are ready and the text is ready and all of it's ducks in a row, So I went up on Tuesday and I had the most hammeringly successful day. I mean, I blew through an introduction that I was making myself cry. I thought it was so good, mwah, mwah, like that kind of thing. I was so pleased with myself. And then I wrote the chapter on Annie Albers, and then I started hooking that piece, right? Because that was the one in my mind that had a huge question mark attached to it. And then I wrote the Matisse chapter. I've got like one more paragraph on that. It's all going really well. So I was amazed at how well I did and had some fun at the same time. But when I woke up in the morning, I was laying in bed and I remembered about Alexa, and I said, Alexa, put on Barry Manilow, and all of a sudden I hear Copacabana blasting, and I was like, oh, Alexa, stop, 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 because it was so jarring first thing in the morning. And then she transitioned to like, I can't smile without you or something like that, and I thought we can live with that. And then I realized I could say, Alexa, turn it down, right? Because it was so loud, it was incredible. It was like Barry was in the room, which I would have loved. Got to get to Las Vegas and see him. Candace, I'm really glad you put the link up because I had to go read the article. It's so funny, right? It was so funny. I love it when things like that happen. If you hear about articles, even like local, I don't want to say even, especially like local interest stuff, please let me know because I always like a feel-good story that lends itself to a rug hooking design because it's one of these ways that we can document our history, right? Our living history through our medium. And that's the way people used to do it, right? Something exciting happened in town, they would hook it up. And we've kind of gotten away from that. So I would like to get back to that. I always like to know when there's something funny going on somewhere. Chrissy, great to see you. Oh, I'm glad you like it. Magby, great to see you in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So happy. Linda says, oh no, yelling at Alexa to stop playing Barryman. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Did she hear me? She totally heard me, didn't she? I'm so sorry. So it's like, yeah, I can understand. Oh my God, Candace, I'm so sorry. Isn't that funny the way that, did you get Copacabana? Did you get Coca? Did you get Copacabana too? Because that's like their go-to. How funny is that? Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I won't do that anymore. That is so funny. All right, so let's get going. I do want to give a huge shout out, thank you to everybody who's helping me with hooking rugs. And I did get a few more people contact me in the last 24 hours, and I am very happy with that because, with the first book and with this design like book, I really, 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 I don't need to be a complete queen bee. I don't. And I don't have the energy to. And I am so grateful and thankful for people who are helping with the hooking, because for me that means I can do designs, right, that can be in the book, and that's what I signed up for. And if other people are hooking them for me, I bet your hooking is better than mine, number one. And number two, I appreciate it so much because time is the one thing that I don't have. Well, also sanity. I don't have sanity or sense of humor. I don't have much of a sense of humor these days. The kids have done me in on that front. But I really appreciate it because what does Sharon say? We don't have Alexa afraid it might freak out our dog. It's she is so attentive. And I was wondering what else she could do. Like I was saying, I won't say her name again, but can you dim the lights? But I guess she wasn't hooked up to the lights. So she couldn't, and it was so Jetsons, right? It's like, a, could you like put the stove on so I don't have to get out of bed to like turn the burner on for the coffee kind of thing? But yeah, it's to me it's amazing. It's like magic. I mean, I'm so low tech. It's crazy. Good thing you love Barry. Yeah, right. Sorry about that. So let's start the episode with just trying to think if there was anything else I meant to tell you immediately. Yes. So the bingo thing got screwed up. We're not going to play for stakes anymore. We're not going to play for money because I think I can get in trouble for that, and that makes me nervous. I was going to put the card together, and that didn't happen. I needed some help with that, and that didn't happen this time. So we'll go to that another night. So you know what I'm going to do tomorrow, and I think you're going to be even happier with this. I called my buddy Michelle Miccarelli, who is a big name in rug hooking, and I said, "Are you free tomorrow?" Because I called her not that long ago, and she had like a family event, and she is free tomorrow. So I'm going to drive over there for some crazy times. So I'm going to go over there tomorrow night, Friday night cocktail night. I'm sure the only thing she drinks is tequila, so we'll probably be having is it margaritas with tequila? Margaritas. What's the other one with an M? Can't remember, but I'm sure we'll be crazy. We'll have to keep it to a minimum. Hi, Susie. Good to see you. But we have had a show with Michelle McRelly maybe 2 years ago, and it was like massive requests after to do another show with her. So I'm going to scoot over there. She's a good friend of mine. We'll hang out in her probably dining room and record another show. And I'm going to go over a little early to see if she has anything new to show us and with some questions. So if you have questions that you'd like to ask Michelle Miccarelli, log on tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will be in her house. You can ask questions of her live. It will be a ton of fun. She is a hoot, Dave. She is a hoot. Um, so yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. And what I needed was to do a show that didn't have a lot of commentary because I took a day, essentially 2 days, to work on the book, and I'm cramming on orders now. I should be caught up by tonight, and I needed a no commentary show, so that works out really well. And she's so much fun. We love to sing when we're together, so we'll have to see how that goes. She is a great wit. Yeah, she is. She is a wild and crazy lady. She's got such a great sense of humor. She's so much fun. I'm very happy that she lives close to me because we always have fun together. It's going to be great, Angela. So help me remember to post that in the Facebook group. I also wanted to ask you, all of you, I am working on this design like book, and I think it will be the first in a series because there's about 1,000 artists that I would like to design like. But I've never asked you, what artists are you looking forward to seeing in the book? Because I have done a lot of classes, but obviously I haven't done everybody. We've only been doing them for a couple of years. Do you have favorite artists, whether they're really well known artists or not at all well known artists, that you would like to see in the book? And they don't have to be like painters, they could also be like Annie Albers is a weaver. I'm using her. They could be the sculptors, anything that I could, in theory, morph into a really good rug hooking design and be able to say, well, look, if you want to do a design that has you in it, that's in the style of this artist, let me know what artists you're thinking of and you're looking forward to in the book. Because there's probably going to be 20 artists in the book, and I've got 17 nailed down. So I could do 3 to 8 more at this point with so much help I could. Um, so I have, I would say half of them are very well known names, and the other half are not. And that's the way I like it because some my favorite artists in the book are the ones who are not well known, and I'm so excited to share those names with you, those people with you. And I'm not going to do a huge spoiler alert before, but there's just more rabbit holes for us all to go down. Once, if you haven't heard of somebody and he or she is in the book and you think, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever seen, you get such an emotional reaction when you look at art. Sometimes you see it and you go, where have you been all my life? This is what I needed in my life. I'm hoping to do that for you, and I'm hoping that if there are magical names that do that for you, that you tell me so I can go down those rabbit holes and see if I can use them in this book. Marilyn, great to see you. I missed you logging on. Sorry about that. I just want to look at this for a minute, and I want to show you what's in here. So I have my screen show coming over here. Again, this is, I don't know how it happened, but this is Early American Magazine, December 2022. So this is what the cover looks like. Oh, I just noticed on the cover, isn't that cute? This cover photo of this house has an actual bar and grill. So I'm sure you know this because you're all so smart. Oh, Genia, great to see you. Great to see you. Giacometti would be interesting. Okay, Karen, that's like a good old master name. I didn't even think of that sort of school of painters. Erte. Oh, that's interesting. That is interesting. I like that. I like that. Um, I like both of those. Ptolemy Man. I don't know that name. I'm gonna have to go. Oh, I'm gonna have to look at that, Sharon. If anybody has time, if anybody's there and friends with me on Facebook, can you just write these names down and just shoot them to me because I'm afraid I'm gonna forget them. I love Erte. Erte, could be great on his own for all this sort of theatrical stuff and the fashion design stuff. For me, Erte always crosses over with like the 1920s Vogue covers. So I could wrap those into one and make a really, really strong chapter. Interesting. That would be a great one too. I know we've said that before and I completely forgot. That would be really great. It's very fashion driven, but if you think about all of the sort of theatrical curtains and Erte always put like little fawns or deer very stylized into the background. Could be very cool for us. Could work really well. Very flat design, right? Could work very well for our medium. That's great. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. So I'm sure you already know this, but that in the corner of the room here is a bar and grill. So, I didn't know this until about 5 years ago or something. I must be some kind of a ding dong. But somebody in an old tavern told me the reason they're called bar and grill, and this isn't an authentic one, because if it was, the bar would be, of course, the surface area that you'd put drinks down on and make the drinks on. And this is an authentic sort of size for an original bar and grill. Oh, Mary, great to see you catching the live chat for the first time. Tomorrow, your beginner hoop and hook are arriving. Oh, fantastic. See if your arthritic hands can do rug hooking. I got to come to you for this one. So let me know how it goes. Different hooks are better or worse for arthritic hands. See how it goes. Sometimes people like to use a crochet hook. And I know I've been saying this a lot lately, but I'm going to say it again because I think it's important. My favorite tool when I'm teaching lately is to bring a 3.5 millimeter crochet hook. And the crochet hook is the same kind of size and style as like the Irish hook or a pencil hook. So like a pen, shaped like a pen and without the bulb on the back. There's so many different kinds of hooks. So if that one's not working for you, let me know, or let's brainstorm in the group so other people can say, well, I've had that too, and this works better for me. Punching might turn out to be better too if it's a problem, but see how it goes. We'll give it the good college try first and see how it goes. Mooch is a good one too, Karen. Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna have to think about that. I mean, Munch was not as prolific a painter as many, but the thing with Munch is I think people expect to see the scream and things that look like the scream, and not all of his work looks like that. I wonder if it would be disappointing. But yeah, I'm going to look at him in more detail. I have not thought about him for a long time. Um, these are great suggestions. Keep them coming. These are great suggestions. I love being reminded of different artists because I'm always in my own groove, right? It's good to go into your groove because it brings me to different places. bar and grill is where you have the bar and then the grill would pull down and lock. So the grill wouldn't be like a pretty little garden decoration like this. It would actually be a full size thing that was like resting, rolling up on the ceiling and then rolling down and locking down on the bar. Did you know that? I only know this from being in old taverns and someone actually closing the grill and going, oh, this is a bar and grill. And I thought, oh my God, that makes a lot of sense because so many places, restaurants are called bar and grill. Now, this is the article that really got me. Downsizing in Style by Jean-Marie Andrews. And it says, after spending decades perfecting their replica of historic Deerfield's 1734 Reverend John Ashley House in a Michigan development, Lynn and Karen Beekman decided to start over. So they said it was too big a house, too big of a garden. The kids were grown and gone, and we always wanted to maintain our own place, but would have spent all of our time doing that, says Karen, explaining why she and husband Lynn chose to downsize to a smaller place, though still in Okemos on the outskirts of Lansing. That was in 2011. And this article is about how they sort of adopted the old to the new. So they have an old house and they're wanting to spruce it up and make it look fresh, but they're also trying to populate it with all kinds of lovely historic looking things. So we've got a real mishmash going in this article. All of the articles in this magazine are amazing, but do you see what I see up on the wall above the mantle? And this is an interesting one too. So let's close in on it. Now remember, this is me taking photographs of a magazine. So the quality is not great, but up on the mantle, chip, 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 I saw this rug. And this isn't really a rug, is it? We can tell by the shape of it that it was a stool. And I thought, that's cool. It still looks really pretty. I like it hanging up there. You know, even though this is called early American life, now rug hooking began in the 1860s, which is not the early American period, it's the Victorian period. But nonetheless, people do sort of relate rug hooking and handcrafts to being early American. I guess the sentiment is there, even if the craft wasn't there yet. So I thought this was interesting to find this. This was a fairly small rug for this mantle, but what a beautiful mantle. I thought this was interesting, worthy of a look. I like the idea of putting, this is certainly a hand-drawn pattern. You can see the color changes in it. Beautiful old rug. Hand-drawn flower basket filled with poppy-type flowers, and then stripies on the side, hit-or-miss stripes going down with the sort of attention to detail where, right at the corner where the join would have met the legs of the stool. Bright crimson red. So beautiful. So beautiful. There were a few articles in this magazine that I thought were pretty. This was another one. This is obviously one of the bedrooms with this beautiful canopy bed. And I'm just putting the magazine to the side. Look at that lovely sort of welcome mat-esque rug hanging above the bed. I'm going to bring you closer to that too. This is a lovely hit or miss and another beautiful 19th century rug for sure. I mean, really unusual attack of the hit or miss, isn't it? Lots of warm colors with black, maybe a little bit of white. But this is almost like a modernist hit or miss, isn't it? It's almost like this person, it's so hard to explain this rug. It looks like it's part Kandinsky and part, 1860s hit or miss. It's so odd. It's so odd. Whoever did this, I guess, this is got to be, unless it's some kind of a replica, and obviously I can't tell from the quality of this photo or even from the magazine. I lost track of that because I started looking at the threads. This would seem to me like a one-off, an original pattern. And it just seems like the spirit of the person who made this rug, making all these wild shapes that will look like 1950s, mid-century American art at its best, was maybe it was it's probably the timeline's wrong, but maybe this is like Helen Frankenthaler or something like that in a past life. It's so odd to think about making these kinds of shapes at that time. They are so ultra modern. I have to peek at the thread. Mary says, I have lots of crochet hooks and I picked up a Pearl McGowan hook from eBay. Very good. The pearl hook seems a bit small. I'll let you know how it goes. It could be a lot of Pearl McGowan hookers and teachers have traditionally liked the smaller cuts. The number 3s and number 4s preferred those to the primitive cuts, which are much higher cuts, number 8 and up. And that changes now because people who are being certified as promo gown teachers are taught primitive and they're teaching primitive, and all of those are feathers in the cap now. But earlier on, it was much more typical to see very narrow cuts, and thus we get very small hooks. That something that looks more for lace making than it does for rug making. So see how that goes. It might be that it's a little bit on the small side. And Mary, I still use those very small hooks, but I use them when I'm hooking with very thin yarn like sock yarn or mohair, something like really gossamer thin. And then I find those hooks perfect for those moments. So see how it goes. And worst case scenario, you use it for really thin cuts. So, and Dave, I love Georgia O'Keeffe. Kirsten, we have to come back to that conversation. Remember the one? We're definitely coming back to Georgia O'Keeffe. I've been doing a deep dive into mid-century artists right now for the Design Light class that's coming up because I might have said Mary, but Helen Frankenthaler is one of the 3 artists I'm looking at this month in the Design Light class. And man, I have gone down this crazy 1950s hole to New York reading about her and her fellow artists, and Jackson Pollock. It is just like, wow, it's such a lush and exciting Christian Dior kind of a world, but not so Parisian, right? It's a bit more raw and rough being New York. All the rich girls wanting to be poor girls and living in bad neighborhoods and situations, being artists, right? Really doing it. So cool. There's going to be so much fun and so much to talk about in this Design Light class coming up. Oh, Andrea says, Martiros Manoukian for the book. Almost bought one of his paintings on a cruise for 2,000. Oh, I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to have that one written to me because I'm never gonna remember that. That's another artist I don't know at all. So I will really look forward to that rabbit hole tonight when I finish the orders. That's great. That reminds me of the rug you did a couple of weeks ago in that class. Huh, I wonder what class that was, Linda Ann. What did I do in there? There's been so many classes in the last couple of weeks. Oh, a rug that I designed in a class. Huh, interesting. Let me know which one it was if you remember. Interesting. Paul Clay, absolutely. Sharon, he's one of my favorites as well. He's one of my tippity-toppities. These are all good suggestions. Keep them coming. Lisa, good to see you. Oh, let me go back to the slideshow. I think I had a couple more slides I want to show you. Yeah, I always say, Early American Magazine, if you like old stuff, right, you are going to love this magazine. This has nothing to do with what we do, but there is a yarn, there's a Swift yarn winder. What's that thing on the far left that's clamped to the table? Is that something, that's got to be something for yarn, right? That looks like a big bobbin or something. I know somebody knows what that is, but look at the gorgeous basket. I liked this photo for the unusual winder, right? I have a collection of winders. I don't have one like this. And I like the collection of, what are those, like drills or something on the top? I see a little Halloween pumpkin, but I see lots of things that look like doorknobs, and I'm guessing those must be drills. The vase rug. The vase rug. I said that like I knew, like I remembered. God, what is wrong with me, Linda Ann? What is wrong with me? It'll come to me eventually. I want to evoke the vase rug too. Maybe Suzanne Valadon, another name that I don't know, Michelle. I'm gonna have to research that too. I don't have a vast knowledge. I only know the people who I know. These are great suggestions. I love the ones that I don't know because that gives me a project, a mission. And if I don't know, maybe other people don't know too, and it could be a really good person. And when it is a person who is not out of copyright, then I do obviously go through not the trouble, but the necessity of getting in touch with either the estate or the living person or her people or whatever for copyright stuff, because obviously for every chapter I do, I need usage rights for all of the images that I use. Excuse me, that's the thing that takes the most time, not so much the designing or the writing the chapters, but all of these crazy emails, right? This is like the stuff that I hate. Interesting. Perhaps drop spindles. Yep, a couple votes for drop spindles. I'm sure you're right. I'm going to go back to it. Are you looking? No, not the umbrella Swift. Up on that wall there's that like cute homemade shelf with all those little scallops, and there's all those things that look like doorknobs on top. Spindles sounds right, and that makes sense because this is almost like a textile themed vignette they got going, isn't it? Interesting. Okay, that makes sense. I wonder, they're all clamped on, aren't they? They're all clamped. Oh, of course they are, because some of them seem to have if you look further back on the shelf, like a little built-in old-timey pincushion. Isn't that what those are that are attached to the back of them? Interesting. That rug was special for the guild. Oh God, of course, Linda Ann. I'm so sorry. What a drippity drip. Yeah, the one that I did the flower vase for the New Canaan Historical Society. It was a lot like that. No, it's not you, it's me. Really, it's not you, it's me. Totally me. All right, let's look forward. It's a yarn ball winder. The thing on the far left, that black thing on the far left that's half cut off, is that some kind of a winder, a yarn ball winder? Not the thing on the right. I know that's a yarn winder, but that thing that is also, is that another drop spindle thing? Oh, you know what? I bet that is a drop spindle thing because it has the same shapes as the thing. I got to research a yarn ball winder. Yeah, I think it's a drop spindle. I think that I'm just delayed, right? That's interesting. I'm going to keep an eye on the thread because I know that some of you are going, she doesn't know what a drop spindle is. Not by sight. Not by sight. That has slipped through my net somehow. I bet at one time I did. Linda Ann says, if Kaz was here, she'd know everything in this picture. She would, wouldn't she? Oh, she wrote today. I've got to write back to her, that sweetheart. Now, here we are coming to this series of books. Now, I really enjoyed these. And we're not going to look at all of them. Each of these are about 6 pages. So they're not as large or as dense as I thought they were. Yeah, 6 pages I think is the largest. But they have some interesting tidbits that I want to share with you. So again, these are called, it's a 4-volume set, and I have the complete set. It popped up on eBay. Hooked Rugs, A Bit of History. Lesson 1. Hello, Anita. Good to see you. And this is by Emily M. Nolan under the supervision of Gabriel Andre Petit. So Petit or whatever. 1926, Fireside Industries printed these. Lesson 1 is the origin and modern methods. So let's see. Now, modern methods is a moving target, right? Because it's almost 100 years later. So let me read you. The first page starts, I'm going to read you the parts that I found very moving and charming. Or that rubbed me the wrong way, one or the other. So this is, I think, very charming. Criticisms and the appreciation of rugs. The modern revival of hooked rugs, circa 1926. With a vogue for antique furniture of all sorts, for quaint china and old-fashioned brass candlesticks, our thoughts turn back to the mid-Victorian period for ideas that are stepping stones into remoter days when human interests revealed themselves in every handicraft. One sentence. Hooked rugs made by our patient grandmothers bring memories of other days more vividly perhaps than any other craft. We feel in every stitch the touch of the industrious hands, and to our minds comes the quaint colonial picture of deft fingers busy under flickering candlelight weaving shredded rags of many colors into quaint yet harmonious rugs to keep the floors warm and the rooms cozy. That's the introduction. I think that is so beautiful, very lyrical. This is not a colonial craft, right? This goes back to the 1860s. But at this time, people really weren't sure how far it went back. In these brochures, for whatever reason, they are constantly referring to the making of a hooked rug as weaving. Now, we know that that is absolutely an incorrect term, but for this moment in time in 1926, for whatever reason, and this is the only source I have where they go to the word weaving every time they talk about hooking or punching. So that's a curiosity and unexpected, right? Shannon, great to see you. Oh, Sharon says John Waterhouse. Oh, paints women. Yeah. Oh, I love John Waterhouse. I never thought about him. For example, Penelope. I love the way he paints the clothing the women are wearing. Oh, that's a really good suggestion. That's a really good suggestion. Come on in. Is it you, Joss?
Yeah, she wants to say hi.
You know, some of you have been asking for Jocelyn. You have not seen her in a long time. My daughter, Jocelyn. If you're feeling well.
Where she is.
I'm just kidding.
Go say hi then.
Just normal. Here she is. Well, okay. So, see what I mean? So you want to say hi? This is a live show. You want to say hi to the viewers?
Hey guys.
Oh, you haven't been on for a while.
Yeah, did you miss
Do you want to
me?
show? I bet they missed you. Here, okay. Show them your shirt. You've got jam sandwich. This is one of your rug hooking designs. Here, sit in my lap. This is one of your best sellers.
Everyone knows jam sandwich.
Yeah, you know my favorite thing about your jam sandwich shirt? There's like a really big hole in the shoulder, and yet you are still wearing it in public. Excellent. All right, let me go on with the show. Happy tap dance. You can no, I'll be gone later. Okay, off she goes. Off she goes.
Bye-bye
I'll see you
now.
later, sweetie. Sue said, "Hey, Joss." Kirsten said, "Hey, Joss." So, sorry about that. So, the origin of hooked rugs. Now, this is really muddy because 1926, there's a lot of confusion about rugs that are sometimes sewn, shared rugs, caterpillar rugs. A lot of those are passing as hooked rugs. And we know now with more research that that is not the case. So we're putting, I'll tell her all of your hellos. She's on her way downstairs to Jody. She's got the dance studio downstairs where we actually switched from tap dance to like lyrical and jazz. So she's having a good old time down there. Hopefully she gets some of that energy out. So the origin of the hooked rug, I'm reading directly and I'm doing a lot of skipping because some of this is just really completely, we know now, not correct. So I don't want to be furthering incorrect information just in case people are logging in part way. The hooked rug, in this, I like this phrase, the hooked rug may have originated in America, and if we wished to prove that it did, we would bring out old rugs which have been found here and there and which emanated from the first 13 states. So she's saying, and I love this approach, not really sure, but we could take a good solid look at them. And that sort of speaks to the fact that that had not been done at this point. We're looking at rugs and they have a pile and they're not woven, so they must all be hooked rugs or the same, made the same way. And we know that now that that's not true. There are different tools, and there's apples and oranges here. Um, you need to do a viable mend on the shirt. That could be super cute. I could do something really cool, like add some kind of Duran Duran 1980s thing to the shoulders or something. She has quite a few jam sandwich rugs because she's very proud of that design that she did. Oh, my jam sandwich is way across the room. Another time. That's all right. Do viable. Oh, visible. Oh, visible. Also viable. Um, Sharon, I'll tell her. So I like how she's approaching without the absolute sureness and brazenness of saying, this is where it comes from, ancient Egypt, that kind of thing. As the craft increased in popularity, now this I have not heard. So tell me if you know anything on this subject. As the craft increased in popularity, the rugs increased in size, and in time, Pennsylvania and New England women attempted larger rugs, and small floor coverings were replaced by larger ones. If this was a true or false question, I would give it a false personally, because I know that when I've seen really large rugs in historic homes that do have great provenance and are well researched, I know that those rugs were made in workshop situations by groups of almost always men who would come together and rug hook a very large rug. I'm sure that there are instances of women hooking larger rugs. I know there are instances, because I've seen them and I own them, of women opening up the feed sack and hooking both sides, so twice as wide as a hearth rug that we're used to seeing because it's half of a feed sack. I don't know. I haven't taken a large enough survey with my own eyes to be able to say I would go along with that statement. But as I stand now, I would not go along with that statement. You could only make a really large rug if you had a really large piece of backing or if you were piecing together and if you had a lot of scraps. And that is the problem, isn't it? How do you get enough scraps to do a room size rug if you're a household? I'm not sure. Carrie, great to see you. Better late than never, of course. Of course. The exact date of the early examples is difficult to obtain. Collectors claim to have specimens which date back well beyond the beginning of the 18th century, but these are few, so we know now that is not the case. When we take into consideration the struggle for existence in those days, in those early days, and the influence it had on any artistic expression, the reason is obvious. So the author is saying, if you think about those early settlement days, of course the priority was setting up villages and building buildings for people who were coming in, not so much worrying about how cold the floor was, right? That would come a little bit later. Decoration and beauty aside, putting a town together in those settlement days was obviously the main thing. The age of the rug is also hard to determine because of such practical matters as usage. Some that are very old have been so well preserved that they look younger than the more recently made ones. That's absolutely true. I'm going to give that a true. Designs, moreover, cannot guide one perfectly in arriving at the age of a rug because it is hard to say whether a design is an original or only a copy. And that's very true. Whether we're talking about specific commercial designs or whether we're talking about the kinds of motifs that were in vogue, out of vogue for 30 years, back in vogue 30 years later, it is often very hard to tell because condition isn't always a giveaway. And she's absolutely right. The design isn't always a giveaway either. She says, yet connoisseurs have a sort of intuition that guides them in their selection of real antiques. And I would say we are all connoisseurs here. If you're sitting here watching the show, you are a connoisseur. She says a few other things in the heading Designs for Hooked Rugs that are also a little bit questionable in my mind. She says Pennsylvania women in particular were fond of picturing home scenes on rugs. I don't know if she's specifically thinking about Magdalena Briner Eby or because she goes on to say children, domestic animals, floral designs, perhaps a flower pot crudely drawn with overhanging flowers were among their favorite subjects. I think that holds true for most early rugs. All rugs of a certain period, I think all of those subjects were viable subjects and visible subjects. I'm not teasing you, Linda Ann, I love you. After this early period of geometric designs, roses and household motifs came a time when the French influence was dominant. This was due perhaps to the popularity at the time of French furniture and French decorations brought over from France and placed in the fine homes. Maybe. Sorry, I have to run commentary because you know how my mouth runs. She does have a rug. This rug is the rug that she's using as an example. And it says, you can see the tag on this rug says, this antique hooked rug, which was found in the New England states, shows a marked French influence. I would also want to point out, I'm not going to really go along with that because the French style was popular right from the 19th century through the early 20th century. And when this book was written in 1926, 1 year earlier, in 1925, was the International Exhibition of Modern and Industrial Decorative Arts, right? And that happened in Paris. And that was like the equivalent of a world fair, right? That was like the biggest design expo to date. And that was the year before this book was printed. And because of that exposition, right, that it was industrial and it was meant for like home, it was almost like a trade show, right? Where they would be showing you textiles and furniture and all kinds of things. That was the year before this catalog, this little book. So for me, I feel like it's more my opinion that it's not so much the French influence, which was quite a bit earlier, right? But it was probably this exposition that was super recent. That the reason why people were very interested again in French design, I don't know. It could be when she's looking at the antique rug that it was, 30 years earlier. All of these things are very subjective, and even in modern books, this is tricky stuff to get into. She goes on to say that. Let me come back to this because she's waxing on about the French theme. She says it was in this second period. So she's talking about the early 20th century. It was in the second period that the finer, more highly prized, and carefully designed rugs were made. These French rugs had garlands of flowers, wreaths, scrolls inspired by the floor coverings of Versailles. Okay, so she is talking about, shame on me, she is talking about antique rugs and why they have a French flavor. So the expo that I was just talking about, that's the reason why we see deco rugs again in the 1920s and 1930s, because of that, I feel. But she's talking about truly antique rugs, the fact that they have scrolls and stuff. She's comparing them to Versailles, right, in that sort of decoration, that school of decoration. The newness and originality of French motifs was an incentive to the designers, and new interest was manifested over the country. This, in turn, was responsible for the high grade of craftsmanship attained. Yeah, that's another, not sure about that part of it. But, French design, I mean, you could say it's inspired by the style of Versailles, but at the same time, that was the universal style in Western Europe and thus the U.S., because people were coming to the U.S. from Western Europe for the most part. So it would make a lot of sense that those styles were going back and forth with ships bringing supplies and information about what the current vogue was. So all of that makes sense. Again, this is, for me, is a little bit of a gray area. She marks this rug with the tag of noticeable Chinese inspiration is this antique hooked rug, also found in New England. And she writes, at this time, the wealthy people also bought Oriental rugs. These, of course, were very much admired by the townswomen who made crude copies of them, sometimes using just a single mendable, then the first, oh, sorry, I'm sorry. This is one of the, I was like, that doesn't make sense. This is one of these things that goes down one column and over to the other. Sometimes using just a single motif rather than the entire carpet as a model. The Oriental rugs furnished a multitude of details and repeats to imitate. Um, she says the third period, unfortunately, is less commendable than the first two. This is due, no doubt, to the general living conditions. Okay, yeah, some of this stuff I just don't agree with, so I want to stay away from it. Certainly, the sort of Orientalism, which was big during the Victorian period, had a lot to do with designs in the Victorian period. So I'm not sure whether it's a question of copying other people's Oriental designs or looking at Orientalism as a movement. Wallpaper and textiles that looked exactly like this. This looks to me more like an Orientalist Victorian era textile than it does an Oriental carpet to me, which to me is an all-over pattern. So interesting. Oops, wait a minute, bad things are happening. So let me move forward. I bracketed off things that I think are of interest to us here. And this was of interest for sure. So there's a section that's called the Tools of Today. And what's really a little bit galling for me is she shows the rug hook. Let me see if I can find her again. Right here. She's always female to me. And this is what she says of this. If you look at this illustration, this is figure 1, you will readily see, okay, this is figure 1. Sorry, wait a minute, let me back up a little bit. She's about to diss our beloved tool. She's calling this antiquated. And she's saying that she prefers the needle, and by needle she means punch needle, but she never uses the expression punch needle. She prefers the needle over this antiquated hook. I put a big exclamation point over that. So she's saying in 1926, this is the old way of doing it. This is a newer way of doing it. Like, that is absolutely not the case, right? The punch needle that we're seeing in this picture, it does come from this period, of course, but it did not replace the rug hook, as she's saying. It is not better to use the rug hook. The reason that she wants you to use the punch needle is, in my opinion, is because Fireside Industries, who published these 4 books, made a product that I can't find a reference to it anywhere online, but in my head, the way they're describing it, it's some kind of, it's called, I think it's called fluff. I'll tell you in a second because we haven't encountered it yet. They have created some kind of yarn called fluff, placeholder, and they want you to punch with it because that's the way it works the best. So they're really steering you in a wacky direction here, saying the rug hook is antiquated and this is the new way of doing it. So that upsets me a little bit because that's a real marketing steer, and that can't hold true for most people. For some people, yes, they would move on to this tool and try it, but it's not like the hook fell by the wayside, right? We're still using hooks mostly for rug hooking. And then she goes on to say, and then this is tool number 3. So we have tool number 1 is the rug hook. Tool number 2 is what she calls the needle. And tool number 3 is this tool. And she just refers to it as tool. She refers to it as the mechanic needle. I think that's how she calls it. She says this tool may be condemned on the ground that it partakes too much of a machine, that that the work will become mechanical, taking away too much of the charm that is sought in handmade work. I myself, she didn't live to see the tufting gun, right? I myself have found that the details in a motif can be more minutely followed with tool number 2, that was the punch, because it allows a closer observation of the lines. So what she's saying is, when you are, and this is an interesting point because I used the Susan Burr, right? I almost put both my shoulders out. And when you're using this tool, she's right. You really can't see well the lines on the pattern, right? Whether you've drawn them or they're commercially made, you really can't see them that well. Her point is valid that when you have a punch, you can see the line as you're going much slower because the what we now call the shuttle punch that she's referring to as the mechanical needle, um, that is cumbersome and large, and it is in front of your face, kind of blocking your view. It also walks itself, so thus it moves quite fast. So I get the point she's making, and it's a good point, considering that she just like deep sixed the rug hook with like one sentence. Tool number 2, because it allows for closer observation of the lines. But what about the long stretches of plain color that are to there's a typo here. I think she means to and from in the background. They lack the interest that is found in the hooking of the motifs with all of their details and all of their colors. On a large rug especially, the background is rather monotonous, a stretch to fill. Why not use the latter tool, meaning this one, to speed up the work, provided, of course, your time is valuable and must bring pecuniary returns? Tool number 3, used in connection with tool number 2, will be the most satisfactory, provided you make loops of the same size. So that's interesting, and I think that is one of the great points of this series. Is she's saying, don't limit yourself to one tool when 2 tools could do better. I'm always saying, if you want speed, use a punch needle and then flip over and use your rug hook for the rest of it, because I feel you get more detail with rug hooking. So it's exactly the same sentiment, but in 1926. Let's keep going for a little while. I might not get to all of this, but this is, for me, so interesting. We've got to cover lesson 2, stories and anecdotes. So let's see what she had to say. Oh, yeah. In olden days, hooked rugs, a bit of history. In olden days, our grandmothers had first to collect their scraps of cloth. With clothing expensive, economy kept the rag bag limp, so that this collecting process alone often took a long period. Times change! Exclamation point. We read of a pioneer woman who was so thrifty she wouldn't use rags for her rugs, but instead used yarn. This was economy on her part because the wool came from her own sheep, and making the yarn was the result of her own patient toil. So in other words, she's making the point, I'm not sure it's a solid point at all or that it's logical, but she's saying that this pioneer woman had nothing but time on her hands, right? That part in itself I question hugely. Nothing but time on her hands. So she might as well use her sheep to produce material yarn that she can make herself, and she can replace it at her leisure with all of this free time she has as a pioneer woman, right? As opposed to buying wool that has been milled, from a mill, and you're buying it and it's more expensive, and you're using it more sparingly because you have to pay for it. So in other words, she's saying pioneer women, if they could, would go for things they could make themselves because they had nothing but time. I think that is a really false statement, but it's here, so I'm reading it. I thought it had some charm. After the scraps were thus carefully saved, they had to be cut, another painstaking task. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't finish that part. There was no, I did. Then later, they had to be dyed, and this dyeing process was not what it is today. A letter to an art house could not supply one with the powerful colors put up in neat little packages, all ready to be dissolved in water. Instead, there were long trips through the woods and marshes. There were scratched hands and muddy boots, disordered kitchens, shelling, husking, and stewing for days. The smartweed, that's one word, smartweed, was gathered for yellows, butternuts for browns, sumacs for drab, madder for rose, indigo for blue, etc. From the garden, onion skins, saffron, and other supplies were culled. Although this early method has a certain degree of romance for us, the amount of work and time it must have entailed is almost inconceivable in this day and age. And in this day and age, it's almost inconceivable to think about writing a letter to the art house to ask for specific colors. I mean, times change, exclamation point, just like she said. Isn't it time for your, oh, it's not time yet, she's back. She be back. You had a lot of buddies saying hi to you. You can check out over here all the hellos you got. Gail, great to see you. Good morning in Australia.
I'm
We
back.
miss you. She's back in school. When it was COVID time, she was with me all the time. And now she is back in school. I love seeing her. She my buddy. She my buddy. So let's look at the next slide. And let me see what else I can bring you. There is such cuteness here. I don't think we're going to get to it all today.
Ooh,
That's a nice picture, isn't it? So,
when is bingo?
oh, this isn't bingo night.
I
This
know,
is,
but when is bingo?
probably, I don't know. I'm going to have to check it out.
Is it in like a week?
Jess, I'm trying to run a show, sweet stuff.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. You don't have to be sorry.
Pat, pat.
The caption for this is, there is nothing complicated about the modern frame. And I want to point out, you can see that she's using number 2, which is the punch, which is the needle, as she calls it. That's what she's using in this photo. She's got the handmade frame going here. In the next section, she's going to be talking about frames. I think I'm only going to go through these 2 books today. But I love this image. So we're going to look at more on this in just a minute. The next section in the book is quaint designs and hooked rugs. In the days when Philadelphia was the capital of our country, there were no magazines, and also rug hooking was not done during this period, but that aside, there were no magazines or art schools from which our great-grandmothers could get designs for the rugs they were weaving. Again, weird use of the word weaving. So, necessity being the mother of invention, they took charcoal from the hearth and drew their own motifs. I love this part. Their sturdy garden hollyhocks, gorgeous red roses, or perhaps the hearthside tabby, furnished them inspiration. But sometimes fathers and boys, in quotes for some reason, fathers and boys, insisted on lending a hand. Funny use of the word insisting, too, isn't it? It's a bit passive-aggressive, I think. Insisted on lending a hand in the planning of the new rug, and then a ruler and plates and saucers from the table were brought to use. Squares and circles pleased the masculine fancy, but Mother often had her way and placed a rose in the center of each square. Thus, the rug became a family affair. In a more concrete way, it represented the family, too, for there was the red flannel from Father's discarded underwear, the gray from Grandmother's homespun skirts, etc. I mean, I think that is super charming. We can all picture the rug she's describing, which is like the checkerboard, where every other square is hit or miss stripies, and in every other square is like a rose, right? Or maybe with the circles, right? Sometimes there's the circles cutting through the squares, but she's describing a very old pattern of rug that we know was done with rulers or just dragging your pencil or charcoal along the grain and using postcards or plates and saucers for reliable shapes. An overly ardent desire to outdo her neighbors led many an unguided designer astray. That accounts perhaps for such ambitious but inappropriate designs as cross and crown and the bonny American flag. Fancy trampling on either. She's got a good point, right? I never thought of that. Because the further back you go in history, the more we think of the American flag as something of great reverence, and I still do, incidentally. But, we do see them as welcome mats also, and I think of it as patriotic when I see an American flag doormat. And now that I'm saying it out loud, I can see what she means too. An amusing discovery is told showing how advancing civilization sometimes affects art. Social workers making their way into Labrador preached, so we're going to talk about the Grenfell mission, but she's not going to name it, preached against the unhygienic habit of the fishermen's expectorating at the hearths, but actually on the rugs. So in other words, she's describing fishermen coming in meaning to spit into the fire and missing and spitting on the hearthrug in front of the fire. And she says, thereupon many of the more serious-minded and progressive wives wove into their hearthrugs the big notice, don't spit. Now, I have never heard this, and this is a great anecdote that belongs in this volume, in this lesson, lesson 2. I researched this afternoon. I found not one instance of any rug bearing the motto, don't spit. But if you know of one or you can find one, I would love to see it and to save that image, right? So I have it for future writing or whatever. I would want to post it because that is a great story. And if that is true, I would just love to see a rug of that sort. Of course, this would be the very kind of rug that people would not save if it was covered with spit, right? And today, hooked rugs are so valuable that they are sold not in exchange for groceries and supplies. I'm skipping 90% of the text in these lessons. She had just said that in Labrador, the rugs were so lovely and they became valuable and they were used as a commodity to trade for life's essentials, like in place of money. So, and today's hooked rugs are so valuable that they are sold not in exchange for groceries and household supplies, but in exchange for valuable sums of money. Some bring as high as $100 in shops. So this is 1926. Let me see if there's anything else. Oh, there's a little bit more. I'm gonna stay with you for just a little bit longer, and then I'm gonna end this episode. So the popularity of hooked rugs in colonial days, and again, rug hooking goes back to the 1860s, but in this time they didn't know that yet. So in colonial days, when winter evenings were long and diversions few, this is going to get you. This is going to make you upset, right? You're going to want to spit on a rug when you hear this. When winter evenings were long and diversions were few, the housewife was content to work an entire winter on one rug. She was content to cut the material into strip after strip of equal width, to wind into huge balls, and to dye the color she needed to make up her design. Time meant little in her unhurried existence. Can you believe that that is written? Time meant little in her unhurried existence. This is the era of women doing absolutely everything except physical men's work. And when men called them outside to do the work, they did that too. They helped with that too. It is just unthinkable to me that there was ever a moment where any person ever thought that in the colonial period, women, even in the evenings, were sitting around in their unhurried existence, looking for ways to waste time or slow time down. Amazing. Today, requirements are more stringent. Speed in all things, even in rug making, is a keynote. A handier needle has been designed. Now, they are trying to sell those two needles, right? They are not selling hooks. They're selling what they're calling the needle, which is the punch, and they're selling the shuttle, which they're calling the punch machine, right? Fireside Industries. So they're trying to sell stuff with these pamphlets. It's very subtle, and they haven't hit us yet with the main product, which is the fluff. We're going to come to that next time we have an episode. So a handier needle has been designed. Yarns of many shades have taken the place of the old-time scraps. Experiments have been conducted in the dyeing of these yarns, colors that will outlast in brilliancy the early vegetable dyes that have been compounded. And in what a variety of exquisite shades these new colors may be had. Interesting. I'm going to stop there because I have a few more things. I'm also wondering if Fireside Industries made dye, because they're hitting us hard with how beautiful these packets of dye are. And we know there are, Putnam dyes, Diamond dyes, Cushing are all early dyes, well before this period, 1926. But it's interesting to think about. I couldn't find anything. If you can, please let me know, because I was curious. I just want to document Fireside Industries as well, because it's another name in our sort of catalog of names as we try to hammer down the corners of our picnic blanket that is the history of rug hooking. It is so good to get all of these names in there and try to fit them into the timeline, including the products that they put out and the ways that they were trying to market. Marketing was so clever and subtle. They have yet to tempt us with the fluff, but they are talking about other products that they sell as they set up for the kill, without a doubt. So we will return to this not tomorrow night when we go over Michelle Miccarelli's house to have a live day with her. Let me catch up for a minute on the thread. Carrie, you were away. You went to the Harbor Hooking in Punta Gorda, Florida yesterday. Shockingly quiet hooking, but I ran into a lot of friends and made a new one. Oh, fantastic. Oh, I'm so glad. That sounds like a lot of fun. I wonder if you took any pictures or anything from it. That sounds like a lot of fun. There, you read my mind. Hooking photos posted on the rug hooking punch. I missed them. So they're in the Rug Hooking Punch Needle Club. They're on our page, and I missed it. So our Facebook group, if you're new to us, is called Rug Hooking and Punch Needle Club, and You can find that on Facebook. That's being a Facebook page, isn't it? Carrie, I will look forward to seeing those photos. I can't wait. Um, Lisa said hi to Joss. Judy said, haha, I joined in just in time to learn that only fathers and boys can use a straight edge or a saucer. I know, super sexist type writing. It's just that time, isn't it? I mean, yeah, but this is a female writer writing under the guidance of a man, right, who's looking over her shoulder. But she is being I can sense passive aggressiveness in quite a few of her phrases. It's just funny to pick up on it. And Dave says, my grandfather used chewing tobacco, a lovely man, but a nasty habit. Oh, the stories I could tell. You have to sprinkle them through the episode so we get to hear all the stories too. Karen says there were bricks that have "Don't spit on the sidewalk." Oh, you're kidding! I've never seen that. You know, they could still have those today. I see people spitting, and I'm not against. I'm only against spitting when other people see you or it goes near them, right? Particularly during these days. I understand the need to spit sometimes, but yeah, I don't really like to see anything coming out of anyone's body. Just flat out, just general rule of decorum. Interesting, but please send me the names of the artists that you came up with in this episode because once I close the episode, I can't see that chat anymore, and I really want to research all of them. And if you have others and you weren't able to log into chat, please let me know. I take all of your suggestions seriously, and whether I can use them to fluff out for not this kind of fluff, like this kind of fluff, for a design like class or not. I can use them for the Design Like book series. I'm so excited. I'm so excited about it. More now than ever, now that I got like a little bit of traction going there. So thank you so much for all of your suggestions. And you know you can reach me at ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com. I'm going to be working on orders tonight, probably till late. And then tomorrow I will be with you at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over at Michelle McRelly's house in New Haven. And we will have a grand old time. Hopefully, I will see you then. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in on Thursday at 5 o'clock. We'll sometimes maybe do a show at this time, or if I have extra material, we could always leak over. That's not such a good word, is it? Um, Leaking and spitting tonight to another episode on Thursdays. I happened to see that on the YouTube page, which is the Ribbon Candy Hooking page, the time of the week that the most people tune into this channel is Thursday at 5, which is when we ran the show today. So I was curious to see how many viewers we had, a few more than other days. So this is a good time spot, I know, for when I can't be with you one day and I can make it up to you on Thursdays. Have a great night. Have a great day tomorrow, and I will catch you at 7 p.m. tomorrow, Eastern Standard.